Welcome to Trauma Recovery Out Loud, where we talk about where we've been, where we are, and where we're going in our trauma recovery journeys. Join us and get some insights and encouragement to keep going and keep growing. Let's go.
Okay, that makes sense. Because that makes sense. Sure, why not?
Yeah,
She
my
really
does
allergic-
love her husband.
I never understood that specific phrase, smoke 'em if you got 'em. I guess people taking breaks if you got a from some time ago. I don't know.
I
Yeah, it would
guess.
have to be in the last century.
Yeah, sometime in the last 100 years or so.
Yeah.
Or in the 1900s, way back
Yeah.
when.
Right. So, hello. Welcome back to the podcast. I'm Stephanie Dunham.
I'm Evelyn Mason.
I'm Richelle Knapp.
We are back after a break. We were only supposed to take a 2-week break, but then we had chaos here for a couple of weeks.
Yeah.
And I needed to not record things last week because it was too chaotic.
Yeah, it was chaotic for sure.
So we took an extra week, but we're back.
We're back.
Yay!
Here we are.
Yeah, so we're going to start a new series today. I'm not exactly sure how many weeks it's going to go. We haven't exactly planned that out.
Yeah.
We're kind of trying to take things one step at a time because we're, wanting to be cautious about what we're saying. So we're taking time to research, talk it through, etc. So I'm going to give a 5-minute introduction and some disclaimers for us. So I'm going to introduce what we're doing, which is talking about what it's like to live as a person with trauma in the church. We are all longtime born-again Christians.
Yeah.
So we all agree on the essentials. We all believe Jesus is the Son of God who died on the cross and rose again on the third day. So, and he died for our sins. So we believe all that. There's no disagreement between us. Now, it's possible there's some variations on what we believe, but I think we have a pretty good working relationship when it comes to our faith in terms of like how we talk about things, because we do talk about things, encourage each other. We do attend the same church right now. We all come from different backgrounds. So tonight we're going to be going over about 20 minutes each. We're going to be going over our individual testimonies, basically. But because we're focused on what it's like to live with trauma in the church, we're going to also be talking a lot about that. And, there are a lot of problems with living as a person with cptsd and trauma in the church because the church really doesn't know what to do with us.
True.
Yeah.
And very true. Yep.
Evelyn and Richelle can speak for themselves, but I definitely have experienced a lot of hurt. People are trying to help, trying to do good. Sometimes they're not. Sometimes they're trying to be controlling. But unfortunately, what's ended up happening is a lot of hurt, a lot of frustration for me, and just confusion. Yes, confusion is probably I would say the strongest feeling of them all. Some frustration, feeling alone inside the church, which is kind of weird because you're not supposed to feel that way in the church.
Right.
Yeah. So we're gonna do our individual journeys, testimonies tonight, but then after that, we're going to address some specific issues that we've experienced individually, maybe even together. And just sort of go over what the problems are and then like what we think will help. And the very last episode, when we finally get there, so this could be 4 weeks or 6 weeks or 8 weeks. It sort of depends on where we end up with it. we're gonna do a sort of wrap up episode where we give suggestions. That's what we're, we don't want to be just like church bad, church people bad.
Yeah.
Like that's not our
No,
goal.
not at all.
We're more interested in how can the church at large, how can the leadership in churches, ministries, etc., help recognize and help people like me. Because the usual things don't help. The usual things people say really cause me significant problems, unfortunately.
Sure.
So, but we, like I said, we're not just going to be church bashing because we do love the church. We are part of the church, and we want the church to grow. That's our goal. You guys in agreement with that?
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah,
anything you want to add to the introduction / disclaimers?
No, I think you covered it pretty well.
Yeah, I can't think of anything else. I suppose if I think of anything, I'll say something, but I think you covered it.
Okay. Like we can't do a recap alert because there's nothing to recap, but we could do a disclaimer alert. Ooh,
disclaimer alert. Yes, disclaimer alert. After the fact, but that's okay.
Yeah. So anyway, so we're gonna get started here. Evelyn's going first, and she's going to tell us about her journey with the faith, and also any like significant speed bumps she's experienced with as someone with trauma. And then Richelle's gonna go, and then I'm last. So all right, so take it away, Evelyn.
Okay, I'm starting my timer. Oh,
yep, starting your timer.
That's another thing to make sure that we don't, ramble on. So my experience with the church, there's been a lot of good as I've thought about it. My earliest church memory was I was about 4 years old. I was sitting in this little classroom, and the teacher's name was Mrs. Willie. Mrs. Willie was very old, and especially as a 4-year-old, I'm looking at this very old lady with white fluffy hair and very bright red lipstick. And Mrs. Willie would get right down at our level. She was not, wah, 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 Charlie Brown teacher. Yeah. I can still remember her face. And she taught me this song, my first Sunday school song. It was running over, my cup is full and running over. Since the Lord saved me, I'm as happy as can be. My cup is full and running over. And I can remember it very clearly. She was very loving. And I'm delighted to say that is my first church memory. But interestingly enough, when I think about that song, it kind of set a certain amount of expectation to be happy. Not just happy, but because the Lord saved me, I'm as happy as can be, And as a 4-year-old, I was pretty happy a lot of the time,
Right.
And as we got more involved in that church, basically my parents were in leadership, especially my dad. So he was the Sunday school superintendent. He was a choir director. He became church treasurer. So we were a family that people looked at, my dad was good friends with the pastor, so it was very much we went into church and it was expected to be good, do good things, be a good girl, and that was reinforced at home as well. But the problem with it was a lot of, I got confused. We talked about confusion. I became confused pretty early on because there was, I'm going to say there was church dad and there was home dad. And they weren't always the same person.
Right.
It wasn't like my dad was a vastly different person at home. It's not that he was a horrible person at home and then completely different at church, but there was a side of him that he never showed at church. And I kind of get that. I mean, we don't just let everything out, right?
Yeah.
But I remember thinking when people would talk to him, and I would be sort of proud of him, but I would also think, like, I wish I had more of that dad at home.
Yeah.
The way
Yeah.
he was with other kids and the way he was just with other people in general.
Mm-hmm.
And I was confused because there was a harshness to him. And that was confusing to me. And I also, because of that, I also had an idea of God as being kind sometimes, like a loving, like Jesus gathering the children on
Yeah.
his lap, but other times, you know, you did that bad thing. And so I was very confused about who is God.
Yeah.
And like most children, I saw my dad, especially being a church leader, and thought, this must be what God is like. So unpredictable, a lot of times could be harsh and critical, but also fun, loving. I was very confused about that.
Yeah. That
And
makes sense.
and that continued really for many years. So I got my little cheat sheet here. Oh, I want to tell you guys something. So, this is going to date me, but I think anybody Gen X, maybe even a little younger, maybe slightly older, if you could picture the flannel board, okay, ours was this
Flannel board?
green color,
Oh,
and
okay.
they would put up things that would kind of stick on the flannel board, and then you peel it back off.
Mhm.
Stories about Jesus. Here's Jesus, the disciples.
Right.
Here's some fish, and I remember the lady who was teaching doing the flannel board one time. She was like, okay, now here are some things you don't want to do, and she put up bottle of alcohol, cigarettes, and all this, and I was like, oh, okay, so good people don't do that, bad people do that.
Hmm.
And so
Yeah.
and there wasn't really a, like, we need to love the bad people and introduce them to Jesus. It was more like, don't be that.
Right.
So I had this idea in my head that, okay, to be good, I don't do bad things, but I do good things. And so there wasn't really an idea of, like, there was the idea of asking Jesus into your heart to forgive your sins. And I did that multiple times growing up, just to make sure, just in case he slipped out of my heart at some point, I had to ask him back in. But um, I was confused about what it meant to be good. And then what do you do when you do something bad?
Right.
Didn't really talk about asking for forgiveness and being restored. So I just kept asking Jesus back into my heart because that's what I knew to do.
Right.
Okay. So, we get older, and I'm continuing trying to look good, sound good, do all the good things. Meanwhile, I've got all this secret life going on, things I was looking at, things I was reading,
Yeah.
things that I was obsessing over. I was kind of boy crazy. And as I got older, I was feeling the hormones happening, and oh boy, I thought all sorts of things and did things that Christian girls shouldn't do. But it was all behind closed doors, and put on the happy face and go back to church. And then when the mental health stuff started spooling up, well, when I was a kid, it was just like, just shut her down, and so I was thought, well, I have to shut myself down. Good girls don't have mental health issues. That was another thing. It was never really like preached from the pulpit, but it was sort of understood. Psychology was talked down on. People who had those kind of mental health issues weren't Christians, and they were
Right.
part of the them category that I was trying to avoid.
Right.
Alcohol, cigarettes, and being mentally ill in any way, because obviously that's a sign of, you're not a Christian.
Yeah.
Well,
Right.
so you can imagine, they know my story, and I've shared some of it if you've heard past podcasts, but I had some severe mental health crises.
Mhm.
And part of what made it all worse was this belief that I can't be a Christian and this happening to me.
Right.
And then trying to talk to somebody, but I was in leadership by that time. I was doing my own thing, my own version. So playing the piano, and I was teaching Sunday school, and that
Right.
sort of thing. I also served on the board. So who am I going to tell? And I can't go to a therapist because therapists are psychologically influenced, and that's not biblical. I
Right.
finally did go to a Christian counselor, though. I did that after I had my first daughter. But then I still had this idea in my head that, okay, but we got to fix it, right? Just
Right.
move on. And, having really nowhere to go, I started to try to fix myself. And the whole time my heart is crying out to the Lord, and I I'm very thankful that he was pursuing me. Because I got into a position here's a positive thing, where I went to this church that was separate from ours. So I wasn't really known at this other church. I still went to my own church. Then I would go to this other church. And they would talk about committing your life fully to the Lord. They talked about this sanctification thing, this purifying process that the Lord would put you in, but you need to submit to him. And I was intrigued, and I'm sorry, I did go back in time a little bit. This is when I was in college. And I
Flashback.
did. Yeah, flashback. Sorry, guys. My sharing is not always going to be linear. But I
That's okay.
remember going forward and kneeling at that altar, and it felt like a safe place. And there was a girl I knew from high school. I ended up kneeling next to her, and she and I were just kind of pouring out our own heart, our hearts. And the pastor went to each one of us, and he spent time with us. And I don't know how long we were kneeling there, but that set me on a really good trajectory. And so in college, I kept seeking the Lord, and I think that really helped me because, man, oh man, I did live at home when I went to college, but there were plenty of temptations there. But I felt the Lord holding me close, and I felt like he helped me to see through some of the stuff that was there. And that pastor that night, and it was more than once really that I knelt at that altar. So then we go forward to when I had then back to the severe mental health issues. I felt very alone. I tried so hard to fix it. I was in a relationship where, my marriage, where my husband was just trying to manage me, and he didn't want me to get help, and he didn't want to put out the money. He thought he could handle it. He thought he could just, manage me well enough, I guess. So when I had a complete break I went full on psychosis and violence, and it was awful, and I wound up in jail. At that point, I was convinced that I was not saved, and that was part of keeping me in this mental spiral, because there was no hope, because I believed I did a bad thing. And that was so foundational. And I know that I'm assuming, that they meant well back when they were like, this is bad, you should avoid it. But it just wasn't complete. And I learned how to really repent. I started to really learn how to repent while I was in prison, although I had done some level of it prior to that. But I was really grateful the Lord met me there. And I know people talk about this, that it happens in jail, but it really does. I mean, you're at the end of your rope, and the Lord's just like waiting, and so many of us do turn to him. So, the years go by, I get out of prison. Everyone, I was kind of surprised, in my church and everything. They were supportive, but I didn't talk a whole lot about the fact that I was taking medication and seeing therapists and all. They were just sort of happy to see me there. And then I was dressed and in my right mind. Well, we ended up moving to a church, our family, back in 2016, 2017, when we joined. We had gone to another church briefly in between, and we ended up going to it was like their daughter congregation. And this was actually where the biggest hurt happened. And it really surprised me. We joined this church, and my husband and my marriage was starting to deteriorate. And at one point, we asked to meet with the pastor. He met with us briefly, but he basically said, I can't really help you that much. You're going to need to get professional counseling. So, okay. And we did some professional counseling, and things just got worse and worse. And all of this abusive type behavior was coming out of my husband. And a lot of it had been there, but I didn't realize that that's what it was, because he wasn't punching me in the face, but he was manipulative, controlling, all the things that I'm like, when I heard about narcissism, I was like, whoa, that's like a checklist, not that I'm diagnosing him, but boy, a lot of it was there. So things got worse and worse. We were where we were separated, but we were still going to the same church. I was in the pastor's small group. I would go there by myself because I just needed something. And finally, it got to where I was getting divorced and all of this. I knew that was going to happen. And I wanted to tell the pastor what sort of man I was married to, because what they saw was nice guy, helper, played Santa Claus. And when I told the pastor, I called him, Steph was with me, and we had this phone call, and I was telling him what was going on. And he said, I haven't seen any of that. I haven't seen any evidence of what you're telling me. And and I was like, of course he's not going to show you that side of him. Would you investigate? Would you at least entertain the thought, but it was mostly I was being nicely pushed away, pushed until I said, well, then I can't come to this church anymore. And he said, well, I could tell you some other places you could come, but you're always welcome at my small group. And I'm like, do you hear yourself? I was appalled. He finally said he would talk to the board about it. And then months go by, I hear nothing. And finally I reached out, and he basically goes, well, we decided to not, investigate or whatever. And I was like, okay, we'll see ya.
Yeah.
And
I think it was more like 6 weeks or so. But it was a long time.
Like a month and a half. It felt like a very long time.
Felt like forever.
Yeah. And I guess, it's not that I was asking him to just carte blanche believe me, but at least take it seriously.
Yeah.
And
at least consider it.
Yeah, and I could tell he just didn't want to deal with it. And so, oh gosh, I have like 3 minutes left. So I ended up leaving that church, obviously, leaving the small group, and the few French, I'd never really connected fully in that church anyway, but it was still very painful, very much a tearing, and it was the worst I'd been treated.
Yeah.
I mean, even people in the world would at least listen to me,
Yeah.
But I was really grateful when we went to the church we're attending now. And I walked in and I saw a dear old friend who had been with me for years, and I'd known her for years. She attended there. And I just started to talk to her, just burst into tears, and she gave me a hug. And there was another lady I knew who was nearby. She goes, would you just come pray with us, and it was such a precious healing moment in the church, so.
Yeah, we've been there, this church now for a little over 3 years.
Yeah.
Together.
Yes, yes. And that's one thing, talking about, church and everything. With people being sick, people being out here and there and everything. When I came into church on Sunday, and there was Stephanie and Richelle, and Stephanie moved so that I could come in and sit between them. What a joyful gift to be there with two of my absolute favorite people on the planet and to be worshiping together.
Yeah.
And a church that, at least at this point, feels safe, and I believe it was
Yeah.
the answer to, I felt like my heart could finally rest.
Yeah.
Makes sense.
Yeah. Well,
So,
is that the end there, Evelyn?
yeah, with a minute and 18 seconds to spare.
Oh, you beat the clock. Amazing.
Bada bing. I was motivated because I did not want it to make noise.
Okay. Yes. Well, yeah, it sounds like you went over the highlights there and made some really interesting points about how shame can develop in the church unintentionally.
Yeah.
And to just sort of follow you through your path. If God doesn't intervene somehow, and it seems like God did at some point intervene with you about shame, to help pull you out of that cycle and into something a bit more realistic and plausible.
Yeah. And I mean, shame has been a huge part of my life, but actually seeing it and realizing some of the roots of it has been really helpful. And then, of course, we're working on the unraveling,
Right. Okay. Well, if there's nothing else, we're moving on to Richelle now. I feel like a host, but it's our podcast.
Our moderator tonight. Although, it'll be her turn. So
yes, it'll be my turn soon. All right, Richelle, set your timer.
Yep, I got it.
And away you go.
Take it away.
So I did not start going to church regularly until I was a young adult. I did have some early experiences with church, but they were not good. Sorry, that's my phone. I bumped it. They were not good.
You need to fix your microphone. I can't really hear you.
Okay, I'm using the right mic.
It needs to be in front of you. It looks like it's turned to the side. Sorry, always with the technical difficulties.
There we go.
There's always something. There you go.
Needs to be.
There we go.
There we go.
Okay.
Now we can hear you.
All right. So I didn't
cut your volume back a little bit.
Okay. Is that better?
Yes.
Okay.
Perfect.
I didn't start going to church regularly until I was a young adult. I got saved when I was 21, almost 22. Had some early experiences with churches that were when I was very young, which were not good. I won't go into that. I was saved, and I remember feeling like the church I was in at the time was a Baptist church I was saved in. Once I became a Christian, things got confusing really fast. And I was, because of you guys, if you've listened to our podcast, Stephanie and I have extensive trauma in our life as children, had it in our life as children. And I was so desperate for family, for any kind of connection to anybody. I would have done anything at that time.
Yeah.
To have a connection with somebody. Now, I know this will not shock you guys, but I may cry. I can already feel myself welling up.
Oh no.
Thought.
Anyways, I was so desperate for family or for connection that I would have done anything for it. And the first church I went to that I was saved in was a Baptist church, and it was very, very confusing because I had a clear picture and understanding of what, at that point at least, what I thought God expected. And like Evelyn said, it was a lot of like, don't do this kind of thing. It was very religious, very legalistic. But there's no real, like Evelyn was saying, like no evangelicalism, no living a sanctified life.
I just want to say we don't think all Baptist churches are bad or legalistic.
No, we don't.
Oh no, not at all.
Maybe that specific one was like that.
Yes. Anyways, But I was a young believer, I was very naive, didn't know much of anything about the Bible or anything. But God did put in me at that time a hunger to understand after I became a believer, and I sought him enthusiastically, passionately. But it just created more, I mean, it was a lot of fun to read the Bible and to try to learn, but it also created a lot of confusion. I did not know at that point that I knew I had been abused, but I didn't know what it meant to be traumatized.
Right.
So fast forwarding to I'd say about 6 or 7 years later, I was in a different church, not a Baptist church, a different church. I really tried to make that church a home for myself. Well, actually, let me back up a bit. About 4 years after I became a Christian, I was part of a group in the state that I didn't live close to. And it was not a formal church, but they were people who got together and hung out and had church in a building every week. I don't remember what kind of building it was now. In a conference room of some type. And it was a very tight-knit group, and I was happy to be part of it for about 5 years. And then during that time, I was in the hospital a couple of times for severe depression. They did help me through that time. They did pray for me quite a bit. But there wasn't a lot of like reaching out going on. But that, I mean, the distance and everything made that difficult. So I don't really fault them for that. But there was a point after about 4 years where we had a disagreement about doctrine and I was kicked out. Suddenly, the pastor literally called me one day and that was it. And I was absolutely heartbroken. I mean, you might as well ripped off my arm. That's how I felt. So then a couple of years after that, I started going to this other church I started talking about a second ago. And there was so much unbelievable confusion there. And that church was where I had the most trouble with being someone who'd been traumatized. So I was starting to understand to a small degree something had, my childhood was really bad. Something had happened to me. I didn't know what the word for it was. I didn't know it was called trauma. I knew for sure at that point I had been abused by our mother to the extent that I didn't know it. But I had depression, anxiety, all of these things. And I was in my mid-20s at this point.
Right.
And I would go to the single persons group. And it was all different ages. All different ages. I bumped my microphone really dramatically.
Let's all do it.
Let's Gibbs our microphones.
I shared the most with that group than I shared with any other church I'd been part of, as far as what I was dealing with.
You hit it so hard you knocked it the
Did
wrong
I not
direction.
get a skew here?
Yes.
There we go. Is that better?
That's better.
Okay. That place was the place I shared the most about my situation with the people that were there. And there was so much of and I have nothing against this group. I loved them when I was there. I didn't judge them for anything. I know they were just trying to help. But there was a lot of like one and done kind of prayers happening, like being healed from depression or whatever I was dealing with at the time. And it was a lot of confusion, a lot of frustration. And there was a major change. I'm not going to go into details of it, but there was a major change happening in the church as far as what they believed. What they were adopting was what I had just gotten out of in previous churches. Not that I was looking for particularly for any kind of like sect of churches to believe in. I just was looking for some place that felt balanced. Yeah. And this place was very unbalanced. I think I went there for about 3 years, maybe 4, until I left because I just felt so disillusioned and so confused. There was so much drama going on there, and the small group I was part of was, like I said, it was a variety of ages, so it was a variety of experience there. There was a lady there who was much older than most of us, and she was very wise, and she had a lot of knowledge. She had a lot of trauma from her marriage. So she did understand me to some degree. It wasn't the same kind of trauma, but she said at one point, well, trauma's trauma. Like it's, it may be different, but the results can be the same. And I can understand how you're feeling and what you're going through. So she did help me quite a bit. And we talked a couple of years after that, even after I left, we talked to each other through Facebook, prayed for each other, that kind of thing. So I did at least have that for a while. She's very helpful and very wise. And then I kind of didn't really go to church for a while because I felt so disillusioned and so confused. I think I tried some different churches, and out of my curiosity, this happened over the span of this whole time, and this was not something I sought out, but I asked questions about something I didn't understand, whether in the Bible or something else I saw, and people would get very offended. We told asked not to come back. Through no fault of my own, just asking questions because I didn't understand what was going on.
Right.
Yeah.
I pulled back from trying to attach to people because of what had happened to me, and I never really established myself in a church. I never rooted myself anywhere because I felt like every time I would try to, something would go wrong, and something major. It wasn't just like one little thing, it was a major problem they had with me, or I saw there, or something.
Right.
And then I got married to, I'm not diagnosing him, but he had narcissistic tendencies for sure, and was mentally and emotionally abusive to me. We went to church sporadically when I was married to him for 8 or 9 years. And I was very lost during that time. I still believed in God, but I just felt very lost and confused. And then I left. We split up in 2015. I think at that point I started going to the church stuff I was going to. Shortly thereafter, we met Evelyn, and we all were going to that church. Then we traveled every church we've gone to since then. We've all gone together.
Yeah.
And now I feel more established and more sure of things, so I'm not so easily swayed by what people say or what they believe. Thankfully, I've learned a lot about trauma and about abuse and how it all works together. And I would like to say that I know there's a lot of people out there who talk about deconstruction. They talk about deconstructing their faith. And I think that deconstruction can occur without losing out on believing in God. That was something I wanted to bring up, because it's something that God did establish in me early on when I was confused. This actually heard this from a guy I worked with when I was like 18, before I even became a Christian. Do not equate God with people. Don't look at what people do as God.
Right.
And that helped me so much, because I really firmly believe if he had not told me that, he planted that seed in my head. If he had not told me that, I probably would have left the faith out of the utter disillusionment, discouragement, and then the frustration and all the feelings I had about what people were doing and what they were telling me and how they were praying for me and how they were trying to help but not really helping, not really getting what was going on with me.
Yeah.
I was so thankful for that, because it kept me from making that mistake. Deconstruction can happen without leaving God. It can be, I don't know what to believe. I need to figure this out. Like, I've been told all these things and I don't know what's true.
Right.
It's taken me years and years to kind of sort all that out. And there's still things that come up here and there. I was reformed, as it were, when I was younger. And that affected me way more than I ever realized. It actually brought its own kind of trauma. And
I hope if a reformist listens to this, they don't take that personally.
Sorry. Probably should have said that. A little too specific there.
Yeah, I mean, doctrinal differences can mean things to different people, but
yeah,
it can, if you're not careful, certain things can have a negative effect on you.
That's true. It had a negative effect on me, and I don't say that to, like Stephanie said, we don't hate anybody that's Baptist. We don't think all Baptists are bad or anything. And I don't think all Reformists are bad either. I just had bad experiences with what I was being taught at the time.
Yeah.
It's my own personal experience. I was trying to name specific things and I slipped up there.
That's okay. That's what I'm here for. Disclaimer, lady.
Yeah.
You should have a sign over your head. Disclaimer lady.
Disclaimer lady.
Well, I might just have a little pop-up that says disclaimer alert.
Yeah. At any rate, it was a lot of turmoil, a lot of frustration, a lot of confusion. I remember praying and asking God to help me understand what was going on, like, in my life. And really and truly, my own trauma my own mental health issues are separate from the church, but bringing them into the church and asking for help is kind of an issue that, like I said, I tried to do, and not really fully grasping myself what was going on with me, and getting so many mixed messages about it. Like, there was so much I felt ashamed of from other people telling me, like you said, Ev, I shouldn't feel this way. You shouldn't feel like that.
Yeah.
You should be healed. You're a Christian. You shouldn't be struggling with these things. You shouldn't be in the hospital with depression 3 or 4 times in your life. You shouldn't feel the way you feel about, I won't say that. And that was probably the worst and most confusing part, because the people who helped me in the hospital told me therapy would be your best option at this point.
Right.
Therapy would help you unravel and understand the things you're struggling with. And I'd go to church and they'd be like, you just need to pray more. Read your Bible more. Are you having your quiet times? And I'm like, that's not enough. That's not really and fully what's going to help me. And I didn't even really understand at that point that wasn't enough.
Yeah. Right.
Can I mention the conversation we had many years ago, Steph?
Well, if you don't, I'm going to.
So I really truly believe this at one point, which I feel so silly about it now. I told Stephanie that all we needed was Jesus. We didn't need therapy or anything like that. How wrong was I? And I'm so glad I was wrong about that.
20-something years later.
Here we are.
She has recanted.
Doing a podcast about therapy, or not therapy, trauma out loud.
About trauma
recovery, yes.
And we're all in therapy.
And we're all in therapy.
And we all go to church.
Yep. So we are a unique group, and I hope if there's others out there who are struggling too, like, we're here. We get it. Like, if you're a believer and you have extensive trauma and you're confused, trust me, we understand. We all have our own struggles. I've certainly had mine with people who are trying to be helpful but just don't know how to handle it, or feel overwhelmed, or want to put you in a box. And sorry, I said a little thought for a second there. And kind of like give you some formula that's going to help you feel better. It just doesn't work that way.
Right.
It's very messy and very emotional and very, all of the things. It's your life pretty much. And I didn't understand that until I was in my 40s. And I couldn't accept it till I was about 45. So that's just going to be my life. The rest of my life is just how it's going to be. That was really hard to grasp and understand fully.
Right.
10 years later, I finally do. But overall, I have had some great experiences with other Christians. And I'm thankful for Stephanie and Evelyn, because without them, I don't know where I'd be. I mean, I'd be very lonely. I know that much. Steph's kind of a built-in friend because she's my sister.
And you live with me.
Yeah. Too, yes. That's right. And Evelyn came along and thought I was Stephanie when we first met, which is kind of adorable and cute.
It's funny. I was thinking about that today. We were in a church. I had not met Richelle yet, but I had met Stephanie. And it was time to mingle like they do. And I thought, all right, there's that lady I met. And as I got closer, I started to realize it wasn't Stephanie, but now we had already locked eyes, and I was like, I guess I'm meeting this lady now.
But in that particular church, I was only known as Stephanie's sister. So
true.
Yes. So we joked about it, and here we are.
How many
and
years
the rest
later?
Is history.
And the rest is history. 10 years later.
10 or so years later, yeah.
Well, I've run out of things to say, and I've got about 3.5 minutes. So I'm going to stop here.
Okay.
You'll yield the balance of your time?
Yes.
Yeah, so sounds to me like, now Evelyn didn't mention this. I don't think you brought this up, but you have told us that you were involved in holiness type churches.
Yes.
Which is, I mean, that holiness can apply to a lot of different denominations, but it's sort of this specific, almost legalistic attitude about lifestyles, specifically how you dress, what you do, where you go, whether or not you can do certain things, like you mentioned. Richelle comes from a reformist. I'm bringing this up for a reason. Richelle comes from a reformist background, which also has its own form of legalism. Every denomination has its own form of legalism.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But reformists tend to be have a very different perspective on, you know, what the Bible says and
Yeah.
what things mean and what we're supposed to do as Christians. A lot of them are very staunchly cessationists.
Yeah. They are.
Meaning they don't believe in prophecy, speaking in tongues, laying on the hands of healing, that kind of thing.
Yeah.
Although very intellectual, very smart, very well
Generally, yeah.
knowing their Bible. Yeah, so I guess I can move on to me now.
All right.
Let me set my timer. 20 minutes on the clock. And Hajime.
That's so funny.
Sorry,
I was thinking
Wrong
the same
situation.
Wrong beaver.
I was about to say wrong class. But this
Little,
is a class. This is a podcast.
little dojo, just a little dojo moment.
A little dojo humor. Anyway, Hajime is the Japanese word for basically begin or start or whatever.
Yeah.
Or do that thing. Anyway, yeah, so I remember as a child going to a Presbyterian church in California. And I remember very few things about it. I remember Sunday school a little bit. And then I also remember being in the main congregation. There was oh boy. What's the thing we do on Sundays when we drink the wine and eat the bread?
Communion.
Communion. Oh my gosh. Anyway, communion was happening and some kid was saying something like, if you weren't baptized or weren't a member or something of that nature, you couldn't take communion. I don't know. So very, very brief. And I think that was happening when my mother and my father were married. Because
Probably.
once my once they divorced, I don't really remember going to church with my father, although it seems like there may have been some of that. I remember going down to the valley. One of my aunts who died a long time ago from bone cancer, she had a house church thing going on. I remember going there. But honestly, it was kind of hit or miss.
Yeah.
And then my mother remarried when I was 9 and eventually moved out to the East Coast. And church really wasn't a thing. We didn't talk about it, go to church.
Yeah.
The only thing my mother would ever say is that she's made her peace with God. I've had one other person in my life say that to me. It was my first husband. And I think when people say that, what they mean is I'm living the life I want.
Yeah.
I don't care how God feels about it. I believe in God, but I'm just doing what I want. That's basically how I took that.
Yeah.
When I was 18 years old, there was someone, I lived in a very small town, and there was someone that did not go off to college like me. Everyone else did. So we started hanging out, and she invited me to her Baptist church, Southern Baptist Church to be specific. And so I started attending. I went through, I went up for an altar call. I asked to be saved. I was baptized. I went to the church a lot for a year. I even lived with the youth pastor and his wife and kids for a little while when I ran away from home. It was about 2 months that I lived with them, and then eventually went back home. Yeah, and then I just stopped going after that. It may be, looking back, it may be because when I talked to the head pastor, because my mother had been there talking to him about me, he basically told me I needed to go home, and I think I felt betrayed.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I didn't want to go back. But right from the get-go, I was always like, what the heck are we even talking about? What? I have to wear a skirt to church? Why?
Yeah. What's that about?
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, what's that about?
Yeah. And they were very staunchly for that. I don't think I ever wore a skirt to church, but I was called out on it in the adult Sunday school class, and I was like, God knows what you look like naked. Why does he care what you wear to church?
Did you actually say
I
that?
said that in the adult Sunday school class to the person running it. Maybe they thought eventually I'd come around. I don't know. But from the get-go, I was like, challenge. Like, don't tell me what to do, sort of an attitude.
Yeah.
But then I stopped going, and there was a long lull, and I left home. I was pregnant, got married, had a baby. Things weren't working out with the first husband at all. He was cheating on me, although he would never admit that, even to today, I'm sure. But I knew he was cheating on me. I talked to people who knew what was going on. Anyway, so I was living in this neighborhood, and this short blonde woman kept coming up to me and talking to me about God. And we would be out in the neighborhood doing neighborhood stuff, because they would have like cleanup days and beautifying days, whatever. So I was out there helping. And this woman, and I was like, no, I won't say what I said to her directly, because I just don't want that recorded. But I was just like, no, I don't want anything to do with this. Well, she was very persistent, and it was around Christmas time. So I met her back in like, I don't know, July or August. So it's around Christmas time. She was walking around the neighborhood handing out flyers for some youth thing at the church she was at. And we got to talking, and I think my husband had left me by that point. I don't know if it was the first time or the second time, but he was not there. And she left after we talked for like an hour. She left because she had to go home. And I walked to the back part of my house, and I had this horrifying feeling right in my chest. You can't see my chest. But I had this horrified feeling like, if I don't get this woman to come back now, this would be a horrible thing. And I ran out the door, and I caught her, and I said, look, I don't know what's going on, but I feel really scared. Can you please come back? She goes, well, I have to go home, feed my kids. I'll be back. So she came back, and that night it took a lot of prayer. It took a lot of warfare. It took a lot of trying, and I had to fight really hard to actually say what you need to say that you want to be a believer. It was it's crazy. Anyway, so she invited me then to, I don't think I went to a church right away, but she then invited me. So the week before Easter that year following, I went to the church, and that's where I started going. Eventually ended up in a separate congregation that I was in. I was in this church for over 25 years. This specific church is, I would say, characterized as highly charismatic. So charismatic people tend to believe in current day prophecy, miraculous healings, praying in tongues, or the gift of tongues, as they would call it, and discernment of spirits, spiritual warfare, casting out of spirits, or what people will call deliverance. That, there's just like a whole list of things in the Bible that Paul talked about that were gifts of the Spirit. But I don't think it was initially like this, but it seemed like eventually it got there, that it sort of became more of the flavor of name it, claim it, word of faith type stuff. And, I was all in 100%. No questions, no doubts for many years. And I was aware, so Richelle and I had met after I was in this church for a couple of years, and I was in therapy. I've been in therapy since I was 19 or 20, off and on. Not the whole entire time, but like most of the time. And I was in therapy, and I knew something was wrong, but I couldn't tell you what it was. I knew it had something to do with the past, but wasn't exactly sure what it was. Didn't know to the extent of what I was dealing with. I do now.
Right.
Yeah.
I absolutely understand now the extent of my problems.
Right. Yeah.
Anyway, and things just seem to be going okay. But then there was like a whole bunch of things that happened that made me question things. Like, I had a friend who had breast cancer
Mm.
Mhm.
who was going around to all these prayer places to have people lay hands on her so she could be healed.
Mm.
Only she never got any real cancer treatment of any kind.
Mm.
Mm.
She was absolutely certain in her mind that God was just going to heal the breast cancer, but the tumor grew so large she suffocated. Basically.
Jeez. That's
Yeah.
horrible.
How awful.
It is horrible.
Yeah.
As somebody else who had ended up having bone cancer, same deal. Everybody prayed for this person, so on and so on. The person died.
Mm.
And the way people acted was there was absolutely no doubt this person's going to live. They're going to be
Mm.
healed, and we're speaking
Yeah.
this over them and declaring that, and
Mm-hmm.
person dies.
Yeah.
Which made me go, why? If we're so certain that this is what God wants, why are these people dying? Like,
Yeah.
I don't
Yeah.
understand. So this set me up for massive failure after massive failure within the church,
Mm.
because I was starting to question everything, and I would read the Bible. See, the problem is I read the Bible.
Oh,
I was
how dare you.
searching. I know,
What were you
crazy.
thinking?
What? Oh my gosh. I started reading the Bible looking for answers about why these people died,
Yeah.
That's valid.
right? And yeah, and it started to ruin everything I've been told.
Mm.
At the
Yeah.
same time this is going on, I'm seeking help from the church. So they're, putting me through different kinds of inner healing, deliverances, laying on of hands, etc.
Mm.
Only I wasn't getting better.
Right.
Right.
Right. Yeah.
I wasn't, of course they were doing, if you go down for prayer on a Sunday morning, the people want to help. So they'll say, well, you should journal, or you should have your quiet time,
Right.
Yeah.
or you should go see this person or do that thing. And I'm like, after I tried all that and it didn't really help. I'm not saying journaling is bad. I'm not
Right.
saying, quiet times are bad. But as far as helping me with my trauma, doesn't help.
Yeah.
It doesn't do much. It doesn't do much good, and it just exacerbates and frustrates me.
Right.
I need different kind of help. There's also several people I ran into that also had weird attitudes about psychology, and it's still out there. I mean, Allie Beth Stuckey and some others have been like doing recent podcasts about the early fathers of psychology and the things they believed in. And yeah, sure, they had some weird. I mean, most
Yeah.
scientists from the 1700s to, I don't know, maybe the 90s had some really weird attitudes about things,
Mm-hmm.
believed some really strange things.
Yeah.
But a lot of what they put into science still stands.
Yeah.
And we're going to get into the whole psychology thing later. But,
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. For sure.
sure.
For sure.
I am a beneficiary of the practice of psychology.
Yeah.
Yeah.
If it weren't for the therapists I've had, I wouldn't be this far along.
Yeah. We all are. We're all benefiters of that.
So, but I ran into that attitude. People called my anxiety demonic. People
Oof.
called my
Yeah.
depression demonic.
Yeah.
I just needed to be delivered. And then I'd be good. I'd be happy, healthy, and wealthy.
And wise.
I was the problem because I lacked faith,
Yeah.
right? That was what I kept running into.
Yeah,
And that
'cause you-
just made me feel horrified.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah. So eventually some things happened where I felt like the only choice I had was to leave. Richelle, Evelyn, and I departed to the church where the pastor eventually was like, I don't believe you, Evelyn, that this person your husband is abusive to you. So we departed there, and we left to the place we're at now. And Rochelle was talking about deconstruction earlier. And I'm not trying to deconstruct my faith or what I believe, but I find that I keep running into things that are sort of slowly disintegrating some things that were built in my mind by my early experiences as a Christian that were detrimental to me.
Yeah.
And made me feel trapped and caged because I could not, for the life of me, fit into the molds that people were trying to put me in when it came to how I lived my life or what I believed.
Right.
And I was trying so hard. Several times I almost gave up on being a Christian at all. Several things happened and I felt so alone. I almost walked away entirely, including miscarriage. There are several things that was kind of like the cap of all the things that had happened. Miscarriage being the one, and if God wanted me to have the desires of my heart, why wouldn't He save my pregnancy?
Right.
Yeah.
That makes sense to think that. Yeah.
But that was what I was taught,
Right.
by charismatic beliefs. And I just couldn't abide with it anymore, so we had to leave.
Yeah.
Ironically, we've ended up in a historically Pentecostal church.
Yeah.
Now, I am thankful that the head pastor seems to have a pretty good grasp on what the Bible actually says about the gifts of the Spirit and about suffering, because that was the other thing. There's no suffering. I ran into this a lot. There's no suffering. What suffering?
Right.
Shouldn't be suffering.
Right.
Yeah.
But I am suffering. Like, I have got all this terrible anxiety in me and I can't seem to get rid of it. Like, well, you just need to have more faith. That was the kind of attitude.
You're supposed to be joyful and
right, not depressed.
Not depressed. Yeah.
My mother-in-law was dying, and she was wasting away because she had had stomach cancer, and they had to remove like 90% of her stomach, and she couldn't eat a whole lot. She couldn't keep anything down, so she was basically starving to death.
Yeah.
And I had found something out like the day before, that morning before church, and I was in church and I looked sad. And I was scolded in the bathroom about that.
Jeez. That's unreal.
I left the bathroom and I went and found that one pastor that I was most connected to, and I told them what happened. And they were like, well, that's not right. Like, the person who scolded me couldn't be like, oh, I'm so sorry to hear that. Because I told them I was upset because I was supposed to be close to that person. And they're like, no, you should be rejoicing. And I'm like, I really want to cuss right now.
Yeah.
But I'm not gonna.
Yeah.
At any rate, that's the feeling I had, and I was so upset.
Yeah.
I kept running into that sort of thing. So these days, I would say I am still mostly charismatic, but not in the way that I was taught to be charismatic.
Right.
I believe in prophecy. I believe in laying on of hands. I believe in miraculous healing. I believe in the gift of tongues, although I don't have it. I've tried. I've asked. The Lord finally told me a few years ago, stop asking.
Yeah.
People kept pushing me to ask the Lord for this, and even made me disobey. Like, they were forcing me to disobey God after He had already said no. I don't know why He doesn't want me to have the gift of tongues, whatever that means.
Yeah.
Right.
I don't know why. And it's fine that I don't have it, but at any rate, so I don't have the gift of tongues. I don't pray in a prayer language. If I do, I'm just pretending and forcing it. I believe in all the things that are listed in the Bible as gifts of the Spirit.
Right.
And whether or not God chooses to do it in present day or not isn't relevant to me. It doesn't change my faith in any way, shape, or form. It's just what he's chosen to do or not
Right.
do. So, whenever I start encountering, like, sometimes the church we're in will sort of edge on some things like that I'm like, I don't know how I feel about that.
Yeah.
But then they say something that totally feels okay, and I'm like, okay.
Yeah.
And I've talked to the pastor directly at least twice now about some of the things that I was concerned about. Great conversations. Totally
Yeah.
love him. Totally trust him. So if people start edging on things that make me nervous, I just remember those conversations with him.
Yeah.
And it's open that I can go talk to him if I
That's
feel
good.
like I need to.
And
And you
that-
can too.
Yeah.
At any rate, so present day, there's still things that are being deconstructed in my life, but I think my faith is actually stronger than it's ever been.
Yeah, same here.
And I feel
Yeah.
more open to God in terms of like being obedient and like trusting him and trusting that he's making all things good.
Yeah.
Yeah. And that, whatever path I'm going to be on, whatever path I'm currently on, whatever path I'm going to be on, whatever I'm doing, I sit and wait and I pray and I ask God to show me and move when I feel it's time to move. So I feel like I'm in a good place despite
Yeah.
all that came before. And the sanctification is ongoing. My trauma recovery is my sanctification.
Yeah.
Yes.
That's how I feel.
Yeah.
Yep.
I think I would say the same.
Same here.
The ideas that I had about God, I'm learning who he really is by getting to know him through his word and spending time with him and other believers. I mean, it's wonderful how when we do partner with him, even if we're, there's going to be no perfect church. People in the church are going to get it wrong. I think Richelle made that very important point about, the difference between God and people and not to get the two mixed up. So I remember even in some of the churches I've been in prior to us meeting and everything, and I felt like the Lord wanted me to stay there. And I'm like, why? But you learn to obey and learn to go, okay, that thing that person said was wrong, but a lot of what they say is right. They're on a journey too, and I'm not following them. And the church is still a place where we can go and we can meet with other believers. And I'm in a small group where we share our struggles, and a lot of it is mental health stuff.
Yeah,
Yeah.
They
sure.
understand, they get it, and we're able to encourage each other. And it's so good to have that, in a body of believers.
Yeah.
I'm not there yet with the small groups. I was in a small group from I think it was 1995 till 2021.
Yeah, it was something like that. Long
It
time.
was like 25 years. I'm a little burnt out on small groups, I think.
Yeah.
But at the same time, I realized, well, if I want to get to know people better, and it's been 3 years, I'm like, Lord, do I need to
Yeah.
Yeah.
maybe join a small group and get to know people? Because I've been kind of hesitant to do that. I've not had great experiences going down asking for prayer, which I've talked to the pastor about.
Yeah.
Because almost inevitably someone wants to give me advice instead of just praying for me.
Yeah, they want to fix
Yeah.
it. Yeah.
And that's one of the biggest issues with being a person with trauma in the church is being supportive doesn't mean fixing the problem for the person. It means listening to what they have to say and then just coming alongside of prayer and just supporting them in prayer and just asking the Lord for insight, asking the Lord how to pray.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And maybe there's plenty of people that do that, but for some reason I keep ending up with people that, want to give me advice.
Yeah.
So and that I haven't figured out how to deal with that yet. So I'm just kind of avoiding. I think I mentioned it recently to one of the other pastors, and he said, "Oh yeah, Pastor so and so still working on that. Maybe it'll get better. I don't know." But
Maybe.
the three of us have each other.
Yeah.
So if I
Yeah.
really need prayer, I have my husband and my son,
Mhm.
have you guys. I don't necessarily need to go down in front of the church
Yeah.
for
Yeah.
prayer.
Yeah. And we kind of have our own little small group after a fashion.
True.
True.
And I'm so
True.
grateful
Sure.
for that. We're, and even cultivating that, I mean, you don't have to necessarily have an official church sanctioned small group. If it's a healthy group of people who are seeking to encourage each other, lift each other up, a place where you can go ahead and share, what's going on. It's taken me so long. I think it's between Steph and Richelle going, just tell us, because it wasn't safe for me. I had to be
Yeah.
the good Christian and everything's fine and I'm happy. And they're like, stop lying to us,
Mhm.
because, you're saying this, but you're acting like this, but to have that, it's so freeing, to be able to just say, yeah, I'm struggling with this thing. Would you guys pray? And
Yeah.
knowing that they will. I mean,
Yeah.
even if everyone's busy, we have this thing where we'll at least kind of look, and then the person at least saw it, even if they can't get back to you right away. The things that I'm supported, and I know that they will be there for me. And I think that's such an important part of the church, that we can be that person, and we can cultivate groups like that with like-minded people.
Yep.
Yeah.
That's very true.
So it's like a little part of the church,
Well, unfortunately, it's not going to be a recap alert because there's nothing to recap.
We could say Evelyn shared her story, Richelle.
We all shared our stories.
We all shared our stories. So
There's a recap.
Yeah.
I don't think that works.
I
No.
know.
Okay.
I was kidding.
Sorry. Okay. So for the next episode, we have what we're calling twisted interpretations of the new creation,
Mhm.
which is going to cover things like ideas about suffering, fairy tale ideas about Christianity, Christians not having mental health problems, etc. Like those are what we wrote down in our little list.
Yeah.
Mhm.
To help ourselves stay on track. So we're going to get
Right.
into some of the nitty gritty about this. We are working with scriptures to talk about it. Now, of course, we're not theologians.
Right.
We're not apologists.
Right.
We're
No.
not Bible teachers. We're just three women who've experienced Christianity for the last 30-something years, or
Mhm.
in Evelyn's case, almost 50-something years.
Yeah.
We're just going by what we've experienced. And, I think people can interpret the Bible for themselves with the help of the Holy Spirit. And I think people can come to the same conclusions about things. And I think the three of us pretty much have,
Yeah.
Yeah.
based on experiences.
Yeah. Agreed.
Like we said earlier, we're not necessarily going church bad,
Right. Right.
church people bad. That's not
No.
the idea here.
Yeah.
The idea here is, okay, this is what we've experienced. This is what we've seen. This is how it affects us. And this is what we'd like to see.
Yeah.
That's where we're going with this. So
Mhm.
if you tune in next week, we'll be talking about twisted interpretations of the new creation, being us. We're the new creation in Christ. All things are made new in Christ, including ourselves. Once we become believers, once we accept Jesus into our hearts, we become new. But also, we still live in this world with all the problems that are existing in this world. It's
Right.
both at the same time, right? So we're
Mhm.
here, and this is new creation, and we're moving closer and closer and closer until we're one.
Maybe we should have preview alert.
Maybe I should have a flannel graph. Oh, preview alerts and a flannel graph.
The flannel graph.
A puppet show, even.
A puppet show.
Yeah. I used to do puppets. Good times in church. Yeah.
Oh my.
Indeed. Preview alert. Preview alert. Yes. We might have to do that one. Yes. Anyway, so I don't really have much else. Do you guys have anything else?
Nope.
No, I think we're good.
Well, thanks for joining us on the podcast today. Please like, subscribe, and share. Push all the buttons.
Do all the things.
You know
Share,
what
like,
to do.
subscribe.
Share.
Push
like.
those buttons.
Like.
Share us with someone you think needs to hear what we have to say.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, definitely. Because sharing is caring, and it helps us grow. And we want to grow and be encouraging. So help us out.
Yes.
All right.
Please help us out.
Please help us out.
I could say it in two other languages.
But... Please help us out.
Do we want it in German and Spanish too, or?
Oh, please. Yes, Evelyn, go.
Hilf uns. That's German. And oh darn, Spanish is mixing up with the German in my head. Ayuda, ayuda nosotros. Something like that.
Evelyn speaks 3 and 1/10 languages.
3 and 1/10. That's funny.
Well, she knows a smattering of Japanese.
Okay.
Yeah,
Like the rest of us.
Yeah, a smattering. It's true. Little smattering.
Little phrases that we have to use frequently.
For
and words. All right. Well, I think that's it. I have nothing else. So thank you for joining us on the podcast. I'm Stephanie Dunham.
I'm Evelyn Mason.
I'm Richelle Knapp.
See ya.
Bye.
Bye. Thank you for joining us today. We hope you got some food for thought and encouragement to keep going and keep growing. See you next time. For more episodes, you can find us on Spotify and YouTube. Comment, like, and subscribe to spread the word and help the channel grow.